War Eagle, everybody. Welcome back to Bleav in Everything Auburn. Taylor Davis and Jason Campbell here with you as always. It is officially football season, y'all. I know games were on last week, week 0, yada, yada, but it's officially official. College football is back. SEC football is back. And Auburn football is back. Highly anticipated season for the Tigers, and Jay and I are excited to get you through all of it. So we are going to break down this week 1 matchup, preview a little bit of what's to come, and make sure that our fans are well educated on what's ahead, because it's going to be one heck of a season. We've got a lot of exciting things ahead, but like we've talked about, Jay, some patience will be required as well. So it will be definitely a learning experience as we go on. So War Eagle, everyone, hope you had a great week since we last chatted. Jay, you look like you have a fresh cut. Do you? You getting ready for your debut?
Well, I got to get ready. You gotta stay ready, and by doing that, you got to take care of all the little things. And a
I know.
haircut is one. And then a while ago, I was able to get. I think this has nothing to do with the subject, but I had some really good spaghetti, and
Mm,
you know, it just filled the spot.
that's
So
great.
I like
That's
spaghetti. I
relevant.
like, yeah, I like Italian food. So that's one preparation. The
I
next
mean,
thing
just
is,
like when you played, you had your pregame meals,
yeah, I have my pregame
you
meal.
know?
Yeah. So I'm excited about this week. It's a new start, new beginning. It's a new start for everything, though. New head
Yeah.
coach, new president, new AD. So there's a lot
New
of newness
quarterback.
that's going on. New quarterback. So a lot of newness going on the plains this week, and everyone's excited. You can feel the energy. You can feel the excitement. I haven't felt Auburn feel like this in a long time,
Yeah.
and I think people are just, it's the anticipation, you know, but we also have to have some realistic thoughts here, Taylor. If you notice
Mm-hmm.
one thing about a lot of games that we watched this weekend, the false start penalties,
Yes.
like just anxious to get going and
Right.
missing out on big plays. So I just think that, that's this week is very critical, because the guys are gonna be so excited and can't wait to go against someone else that doesn't dress out in the same uniform, that they got to make sure that they don't get too antsy.
Right. I can imagine. I mean, week 1 every year is always exciting, and you're so eager. Eager doesn't even feel like it does it justice. But this year in particular for Auburn, there just feels like there's something. We've talked so much about leaving the past 2 years in the past. The
Mhm.
only way we do that is to put a new product on the field, and they haven't had the opportunity to do that just yet. So once they take the field, once we get a game under our belt, all of that really is in the rearview mirror, and we no longer have to fixate on it. And they get to write their new narrative, which they
Right.
are very keyed in on doing. So I think there's so much excitement around the fan base. I also love that, and I mean, I know this working in media, no one really knows how to feel about Auburn right now.
Right.
The
Yeah.
quote experts and us talking heads, because there is so much that feels totally different than what the last 2 years have been. And you look across this roster, and it's so many new faces, new names, the coaching staff, like you said, there's little ability to really predict what this is going to look like. And I think that makes it more fun heading into week 1, because we're all just happy to be back in a better culture than what the last
Right.
couple of years have been. So
No doubt.
what was usually the week before? I mean, I can't imagine. I feel like class would be difficult, like homework would be tough. Like I working in, sports, my week leading up to week 1, there's just so much, a little bit of anxiousness, a lot of
Yeah.
excitement, a lot of curiosity. What's this all going to feel like, be like? Talk us through kind of what that experience is like playing at Auburn, and yet just trying to be a normal
Yeah.
student week of.
Well, I got a chance to talk to some of the players this week, and one thing they was talking about was being excited about just running through and seeing 90,000 people in the stands. A
Yep.
lot of these guys transfer from other universities, some of them from smaller universities, and they haven't experienced this. The biggest crowds they said they played in front of was 30 or 40,000, and now to be able to play in front of 87 to 90,000 and be able to go through Tiger Walk, be able to see the eagle fly on the field, things that you see on TV, but to be part of a big time program, I think is the excitement and everything. But far as a week 1 goes, as when you're getting ready, if you're a freshman, it's totally different than a senior. As a freshman, you want to prove to people like, hey, I belong.
Mhm.
Like that. I can compete with these guys, and you so want to quickly want to make a name for yourself that you have to be careful that you don't overdo things and create anxiety on yourself to a point that when you get on the football field, things are going so fast because you're going too fast. And
True.
so you got to know how to let the game come to you and not go out trying to force things that make it happen itself. The next thing for a senior, if you're a junior or senior, you got experience at playing. So for you, it's like, okay, I want to get off on the right start this year. I want to put the last 2 years behind us, but I want to get off to the right start. How I do that is my effort, you know, also getting settled in the game, making sure that I'm on my calls, because now as a junior or senior, you're helping younger players, because in the first game, younger players play a lot. And because
Yeah.
everyone's in rotation. So these guys got to be able to communicate with the younger guys. So for them, as learning, when you're learning a new system, it's all about, did I get my checks right? Did I make the right calls? Are people lined up in the right position? So a lot of those things are going through your mind, but also you want to make the big plays as well.
Right.
So, it's just a full excitement, but it's week one, and like I said, football season officially here.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really great point to make about week one. And coaches always want to emphasize it to their guys because that adrenaline is bound to get you at some point. And so the mental discipline and toughness is really what you want to see in week
Hmm.
one. It's guaranteed that the physical aspects and the unity of your offensive line and the all of those little technique things, they're going to evolve as season goes on and as you guys get more comfortable as a team in a game environment. But the mental aspect is on the individual player. And so that's where it really, as a coach, you look at this and go, okay, this is about to show me kind of how mature you are in game, how settled you can be, even though emotions are going wild. Because as exciting as week one is going to be, I would argue that there are going to be some matchups down the road that evoke a bit more emotion than a matchup with UMass. That's just the reality of it. And so you need to see that your guys are able to make the most of the moment, but not deviate from what they know they have to do to
Hmm.
execute. So I think that's probably going to be a big piece of what Hugh Freeze looks for. I think that's a great point.
Most importantly, though, this is a game Auburn needs to start off with. And I'm gonna be
Yeah.
honest, like I watched them play New Mexico State last week. They don't look like the same UMass team from the last 2 to 3 years either.
No.
They got
Pumachan.
Pumachan, yeah, the transfer, that came over, a
Yep.
really solid player. They got two receivers is really solid, Simpson, Wells kid, and defense plays really hard. They beat a good New Mexico State team that's in the
Yeah.
Conference USA,
An
and
FBS team. Yeah.
or FBS team, and they was there in their territory. So this thing, oh, we'll come in and just wipe them out of the water in the first quarter. No, like this is still jitters because it's the first
Yeah.
game. They're gonna make some mistakes, but we need this game because there's a whole new coaching staff.
Right.
And we need a build up because we already talked about the middle of our schedule, what it's gonna look like. We need to build up to get to that before we start playing the big dogs.
100%. Yeah, great points about UMass. I think if you look at what last year they were 1-11, really
Yeah.
really tough season for them last year. So, playing New Mexico State last week in week 0, 41-30 win. It was actually their first win in a season opener on the road against an FBS opponent since the 70s. So, literally this was a completely different beginning for them, and I think it'll be interesting to see, just Auburn aside, kind of what they do with that momentum, because it is kind of starting from scratch when you have a 1-11 season. But they bring in Tyson Pumachan at quarterback. I actually covered Tyson when he was at Clemson. He was at Clemson
Mhm.
from 19 to 21 and then went to Georgia Tech and now finds himself at UMass. He was 10 of 17 for 192 yards. He rushed for another 96 last week against New Mexico State. He is listed at 6'4", 215, and he appeared in 13 games over 3 seasons for Clemson. So this is no slouch at
Right.
quarterback that's leading them, okay? They also have running back Kayron Adams, who scored 2 touchdowns on the ground last week, and their defense 1 or 2 interceptions. So I definitely think that there's guys out there that can contest. One thing that stood out to me looking at their breakdown from last week, he had 192 yards through the air, but only one of those was over 20 yards. He only had one completion over 20 yards. And I feel like when you're up against an SEC front and you've got guys like we do, you're going to have to take some deep shots. And that wasn't something that they were really doing in week 0.
Most definitely. But this game, let's be honest, all about Auburn. This game is about how do we get off to a fast start. And you definitely don't want to let a team like UMass hang around, because we've seen in the past, the thing about Auburn sometimes is we play down to our level of competition.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't think with this being the first game, UMass coming off a victory last week, they're walking in here with confident as far as like, hey, we're trying to start a new trend here. And like you were saying, like, they're going to play extremely hard, because last week they probably played in front of 15,000. This week they're going to be playing in front of 90,000.
Right.
And so they look at this too as an opportunity for them to, like, say, showcase some of their guys and some of their abilities. But at the same time, Auburn got to jump on them quick. Got to let them know, like, hey, this is a different playing field. And
Right.
don't let them hang around. But it's going to take a little time to get the game kind of grooving and going too, though, because UMass has a week ahead on us. So they've had a chance to iron out some kinks that they had last week. Your biggest improvement in football is from week 1 to week 2. So they get a chance to have improvements this week.
Yeah.
Auburn, this is their first week. So, this would be critical for them in this game and how we adjust next week against Cal. So I'm excited about this game. I feel like Pumachan is going to really give our defense, something that they can build off of, from a standpoint of, you got to play a quarterback that's a dual threat.
Yeah.
We got to play multiple quarterbacks this year that's going to be dual threats. So Pumachan's a guy too. The reason they don't throw the ball down the field, because I think their coaching staff looked at it and said, hey, how do we get this guy's confidence going? I don't want to throw a bunch of deep balls and be incomplete passes. And now all of a sudden he's not building his confidence in the passing game. So since they do a lot of RPO stuff is quick hitters. So you got to read the linebacker really quick. You got those slants, got to throw quick hitters. So it's nothing going to have time to develop down the field as it's called that way. So I think for him, it was a lot of it is, we want to get him pulling the ball. We want to get his feet going. We want to get him outside the pocket where he's comfortable. But then also, if he has to make in-pocket throws, we want it to be a high percentage throw. And it will work to get to those deep balls. But this week, I bet you better expect that they will try to take some shots, because they know we'll be loading up for that.
They know they have to. Absolutely right. Like I said, the depth chart was released today. Hugh Freeze basically downplayed every bit of it. He said that he isn't even the one who made the 2 deep. So take it with a grain of salt. But I do think there are some things that you can take away from it. One, and probably the most notable, is that Jarquez Hunter is listed as the first running back on the depth chart, and basically eliminating the potential wondering if there was going to be any kind of in-game suspension for him following some of the off-season woes. So he is listed on the depth chart, expected to go, followed by Damari Alston and Brian Battie. Wide receiver, it really looks like there's just a lot of evenness at that position right now. You've got about 9 guys spread across all of those positions, a bunch of oars mixed in there. So I think they've got a lot of faith in a lot of those guys, but also still waiting to see one of them kind of become the alpha and kind of take it by the horns in a game scenario. At quarterback, obviously Peyton Thorne listed as the 1, Robbie Ashford or Holden Gerner listed at 2. It's not a specified 1, 2, 3, even though we all were basically talking about Peyton versus Robbie. I think that just kind of gives a nod to Holden as someone who was very much in the mix and a part of that quarterback battle, and that wasn't just speculation. And then defensively, Cam Riley looks to have won the starting linebacker job next to Austin Keys, even though we heard a lot of hype about Eugene Asante and Larry Nixon, guys that will absolutely be in the mix. But I think that this is kind of a compliment to Cam Riley, not the guy that got all the hype and the accolades in the offseason, but kind of sneakily got up on in there, and he's listed as the starting linebacker next to Ole Miss transfer Austin Keys.
Well, the thing about Cam is long. He kind of reminds you of Carlos Dansby. Dansby was a long guy and played the position exceptionally well. Of course he did, 14 years in the NFL. So, I think Cam he's a really good kid, but also he's a hard worker. And I think he worked himself into saying, okay, I know competition is coming in, but I'm going to continue to compete and continue to get myself prepared because I know I belong on this field. So he's
Right.
one of the returning guys from last year. I think that also helps because he can help Larry Nixon and some of the other guys that just come in. Now, Eugene Ashante, he's had a phenomenal fall camp. He
Mm-hmm.
will get playing time. And the thing I said, you really can't lace up the starting positions until you get to week 3. And I
Yeah.
say that because the depth chart is going to say the reason these guys are starting in certain positions is because of what they did in fall camp.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you do in week 1 and week 2 against a different opponent is going to dictate, do you keep that position or do the
Right.
guy behind you competes and play at a higher level than you, then he overtakes you in that position
Right.
moving forward. So I think coaches still creating a competition environment because there are some positions you look at, you like, oh wow, man, I thought that guy like Camden Brown. We thought Camden was going to be a
Yeah.
starter, right? But now Shane Hooks has come in. He's really played well. Of course, Camden's had some injuries, so he got to work his
Mm-hmm.
way back up. But that creates good competition because both of those guys are going to play a lot. It
Yeah.
doesn't really matter if he's 1 or 2. But then you look at Justin Rogers, the big transfer from Kentucky. You look
Yep.
on the thing like, oh, Jason Jones is right there, and then Justin Rogers behind him. And, this guy has been talked to being an all SEC type defensive tackle. Okay, maybe Jason Jones bumped it up in fall camp and got out there and bust his tail. And maybe Justin needs to continue to show what he can do. And maybe
Right.
this is something that they're trying to use to motivate him. And so if he can get out there and play really well, it just makes everybody just play better because you
Yeah.
don't get comfortable in sitting in your position and saying, like, this is mine, I got it, it's on lockdown. No,
Mm-hmm.
nothing's on lockdown because coach haven't seen any of y'all play in person before against another opponent with him being the head coach.
Right. I totally agree with you. I think that we could definitely see a different depth chart for week 2 than we do for week 1, but it's definitely going to be a learning experience for the coaching staff too. Like you kind of touched on at the beginning, these coaches have to gel as well. They have to get into their rhythm and communication and calls. And I don't know who's going to be in the box versus on the field, but that communication pattern has to, they have to have a minute to get that going too. And obviously, those are things that you practice as well. But I think it's going to be a very interesting peek into not only the personnel we have, but how they all are working together. And I think that's why when you look up and down the depth chart, it's a lot of oars because it's kind of like they're going to show us at this
Right.
point. We have our takes from fall camp and expectations, but when the lights come on, who really takes advantage of the moment? So, but specifically because I think I would be doing our listeners a disservice if I did not ask you this pretty much every week. Week 1 quarterback, Peyton Thorne gets the nod. What are you specifically looking for from him in this first matchup and his first game as an Auburn Tiger?
Similar to what UMass did with Tyson Pumajon last week, where they got him into an early rhythm.
Mhm.
This is all new. He's in a new environment. He's with new teammates. Like I said, still he's only had a little over 2.5 weeks of practicing with this team, no,
Right.
and live practices. So it's very important that the coaching staff gets him in situations where he feels comfortable throwing the ball and then he gets into a rhythm and then he knows when to take his shots.
Mm.
I think if he can get this game and have a high percentage completion percentage coming out of this game, I think it bodes well for him moving forward as far as like building that rhythm and those receivers gaining more and more trust in him as the quarterback. So those things for him, what's the most important come Saturday for him is 1, protect the football.
Mhm.
2, make sure we're not playing slow. Make sure the guys are playing with a fast tempo. And then 3, just making sure that he's being vocal, but also making sure that he's in command and have everyone in that huddle on the same page. So I think those are the things just for him. It's right now probably he's a little nervous just because it doesn't matter who's playing open like a high school. He probably still be a little nervous, just because you're playing in front of a different atmosphere,
Yeah.
and the expectations are high,
Yeah.
and you want to live up to these expectations. That's why I tell people all the time, like, it's one thing to have expectations placed on you. It's another thing when you're trying to live up to those expectations quickly, because you
Yeah.
will quickly want to show people like, oh, I want everybody to just have confidence and believe in me immediately. So then
Right.
sometimes what you see younger quarterbacks do is they start to make mistakes. They start to get in trouble. They start trying to
Mhm.
make errant throws because they're trying to do too much. I think
Right.
with him not being young and all the touchdown passes he's had so far in his career and playing in the Big Ten, he's played in front of big crowds. He played in Penn State. He played in Michigan, Ohio State. So he knows what that's like. For
Right.
him, it's about I don't have to do all of that. I just want to feel comfortable in my environment.
Yeah. No, I think his experience level and his age and maturity level
Mhm.
definitely is going to bode well for this situation because the reality is you've got a couple guys over on the sidelines that some of this fan base believes deserves to be starting over you, and you don't want to basically feed into what all of that is going to be, but it can't change what you do, you know. And I remember when early on in the TJ Finley, Robbie Ashford, that whole thing, anytime TJ did something wrong, that everyone's like, "But
Right.
Robbie," and but like, and I
Right.
do think it got to TJ a little bit, and honestly, I think it got to Robbie a little bit. But you've
Mhm.
got to have that mental fortitude in a situation like that, and I think that that's one of Peyton's strongest assets is the experience level that he comes in with to handle these moments. Do you remember the week leading up to your first game as like the undisputed starter?
Oh yeah, I was nervous. When I came out of high school, being a 5-star recruit at the time, I think I was one of Auburn's first 5-star recruits at that time, and it was just amount of pressure because I
Yeah,
felt like I had to live up to what everyone was expecting,
right.
because and I was just like, man, like I just want to do everything right. I just want to make big plays. I want to,
Yeah.
and I ended up having a really good game, and especially my first SEC game was against the state that I finished from. It was against Ole Miss,
Wow.
so
Mhm.
that was like a really like okay moment. But for me, once I got hit first, and then once I got my first completion,
Mhm.
then the butterflies start to go down. It's the buildup of getting there. But then
Totally.
once you get to the football field, this is your environment. It's
You
this is
do.
yeah, this is now everything's feeling normal. But when you're on the outside, you're riding the bus and you see Tiger Walk, you see all these people, and people pumping you in your chest and hitting you on your back and saying, "Let's go," and all this type of stuff. And then you get to the sideline, and everybody standing around the side. And then immediately you're like, okay, once the game come, you get your first completion, you get hit in the mouth, or you make a run, then that always just goes out the door.
Yeah.
And now it's about playing football.
Right, right. And it'll happen for all of these guys. They'll get into the swing of
Yeah,
it and that anticipation kind of fades. And heck, Jay, you weren't even in the age of social media and it was getting to you. You know what I mean? Like
all right.
these kids are hearing it from every angle. So, well, we get going 2:30 Central Time on ESPN or you can listen on Auburn Radio. I hear they've got some pretty cool guys on that one. So, it's going to be a blast. I'm excited. But honestly, across the board, week one is full of some crazy matchups, Jay.
Oh yeah.
Week one sometimes can be kind of a snooze fest. We're all excited to have football back, of course, our own respective teams. But I love these cross conference
Yeah.
Power Five matchups that we've got. And it's over the course of like 5 days. Like we have so much football ahead of us. So let's get your picks, Jay, because why the heck
Hey,
not?
let's
Starting
do
out
it.
on Thursday, Florida,
Hmm.
Utah. What are your thoughts for this one?
I'm gonna go Florida in this one. Only reason I'm going Florida is
Wow.
because Utah is supposed to be starting their third string quarterback. He had the surgery and he supposedly
Yeah.
came back within a certain amount of days, but I don't think they want to rush him just to get him ready to play
Mm,
this game and when they're gonna need him for the rest of the season. So, and then I think the other quarterback sprained his MCL in practice. So I think they're starting their third string quarterback. So if they're starting their third string quarterback, I'm going Florida. If
okay.
they come out there and the starter shows up, the normal starter, then I'm going Utah.
Interesting. Okay. And they may not, I actually just Googled it. Cam Rising feels, quote, pretty good, but will he play versus Florida? They probably are not going to tell anybody. And then on Thursday, we'll just wait and see. I
Yeah.
agree with you, though. I did not know that storyline. And I think that if Cam Rising's out there, that's a tough test for the Gators. And I think Florida's
Mhm.
just still not quite there yet. They're kind of into, into the process, but I think they've got a little ways to go. That's going to be a tough matchup for them, and I think I lean toward Utah. The highly anticipated matchup, honestly, for all college football fans, not just fans of these two schools. Florida State, LSU, the rematch on Sunday night following last year's unbelievable ending, the blocked extra point for LSU to win it. Florida State gets the dub. We got a rematch, and honestly, so much hype surrounds both of these teams this year. This one has the makings of another great one. What do you think?
Ooh, Brian Kelly got beat up so much last year for not going for two in that game in
Ah,
that situation, and then he did later on in the year. He beat Bama by going for two,
yeah,
so he kind of made up for it.
true.
So, but it hurts any coach to lose a big game, and when you get a chance to play a team the next year, and you get a chance to lace it up. I think this game is in with Orlando, so you get a chance to lace it up again and get another shot at it. This is
Yep.
going to be a game that I'm going with LSU because of defense. I think LSU's defense is going to show up in this game. I understand Florida State has a quarterback that's a dual threat. They got the 6'7" receiver, but LSU has always been known for secondary U. They've
Right.
always been known to have quality guys, but I think their defense is what's going to set them apart in this game against Florida State.
It's going to be interesting because honestly, these teams kind of look pretty similar to last year.
Mhm.
They had a lot of guys choose to stay. Both quarterbacks return, so both of these teams have gotten older, stronger, wiser since this matchup last year, and of course have added new key pieces through the transfer portal, recruiting, you what have you. But this is going to be a very fun matchup, and
Oh yeah.
obviously, it's laced with all of the impending revenge from last year. So I'm going LSU. I don't think Florida State gets that done 2 years in a row. And Monday night, I am very thrilled for this
Hmm.
one. I think I'm in minority, but I covered Duke multiple times last season, and I love their quarterback, Riley Leonard. I think he is so underrated. And obviously, when you play at Duke, you kind of are up against that a little bit. People don't expect that he would be the stud that he is, but he played his heart out last season, and he is a great runner. He is physical. I think Clemson certainly looks better this year than they did last year, and I think Cade Klubnik is also a great quarterback for them. So Clemson definitely may be closer to the Clemson that we're all used to in the past 6 years. But I would love to see Duke pull off this upset in week one. I really would.
Oh gosh. Taylor, that's a feel good story. That is a feel good story for
100%.
Duke. But Clemson,
100%.
Clemson and Dabo Sweeney is not going to let Duke beat them this Monday night. And I don't even know how they got the only game for Monday night, first and
I know.
foremost. I would have thought, UNC, South Carolina or something, but I like Duke. I like how the university looks on campus. I like the greenery, but there's nothing about the Duke
Did you
football
watch
right
them
now.
last year? Be
I watched
honest.
them a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going with Dabo Sweeney and Clemson Tigers because why? Everybody has written them off, and they want to try to show everybody on national TV who they are and that they're back in the hunt to compete against Florida State for the ACC, which they're still not a strong conference,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the only reason I give that. I give you that though. Duke is a well improved machine,
Yeah.
and I do like them from a heart perspective, but from a logical perspective here, I got to put my money on
I know.
on Clemson.
Believe me, I'm not picking Duke. I'm just telling you,
No,
I
no, 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 no. You
wish.
picking Duke. You
G-
said Duke. No,
Roll it
you're
back.
picking
Roll
Duke.
it back. I said
No,
I would love to see
uh-uh.
Duke
No,
upset Clemson. I never
no,
said they're
no,
gonna.
no.
Honestly, I would have loved to see Riley Leonard in Auburn. He's from Fairhope. His girlfriend goes to Auburn. Like, I really thought there was a
Oh
possibility.
gosh,
But
now with Romeo and Juliet, the man come to Auburn.
oh, look, Jay, love is hard out here. Okay. So if these people can find it, I'm going to encourage them.
Hey,
All right. Some
I
of us
told you.
should have it.
I told you about the Bachelorette show. I told you about the Bachelorette show.
Over my dead body do I go on national television to find a husband, please. Although I do work in national television, so if any audience member just thinks that I'm their wife, let me know. All right, so I did forget UNC South Carolina. Of course, that's where game day is going to be this weekend. What's your pick for that one? Neutral site in Charlotte.
Gosh, this is a tough one. This is a tough one because I really think Coach Beamer at South Carolina really gets his guys to motivate, and their quarterback,
He does.
he had such a really good ending to last year's season.
Right.
To beat Clemson in Clemson last year in a hostile environment. Like, I really think but you got to go with North Carolina because they have the supposed to be poster boy quarterback coming back, right?
I mean, Drake's fantastic. He's very, very good.
In this game, I'm going with the more physical team, which I think is going to be South Carolina.
I like it. I think I would go with them too, but I think that one will be very exciting as well. I'm telling you, I love a lot of these matchups this week. We will have plenty to break down next week. But before we go, I love some rapid fire, but I'm going to make it even harder on you. Rapid fire, yes or no, because Jason loves to be somewhere in the middle and give an explanation for both sides. But you're going to have to just give me yes or no. Obviously, that is set up to change as season goes on, but based on your perspective right now, yes or no's, okay?
Do I have an IDK? Did I get an IDK in there?
No IDK button. Yes or no. Okay. Will an ACC team make the playoff?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Will Bo Nix be a Heisman finalist?
No.
Will Georgia three-peat?
No.
Will Alabama be better than people expect?
Yes.
Will Auburn have at least one upset victory?
Yes.
Will this be Jim Harbaugh's last year at Michigan?
No way. Not if he wins the national championship.
Will Michigan win the national championship?
No, they'll make the playoffs.
Okay.
It's 12 teams this year, right?
No. That doesn't happen until like 25.
Oh, shoot. Well, I still give an ACC team a shot to get in one.
Oh, that's why you said that. Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people think Florida State's going to sneak in there, or if Clemson, honestly, Clemson, Florida State will probably play twice. That's likely how they'll have a regular season and then the conference championship. If one of them wins outright, you may end up in the playoff.
That's true. That's true. I just think, Florida State, Clemson, they're going to take one of them. But if Florida State loses to LSU and LSU goes on to have a great season, but they lose to Alabama or Georgia, then that knocks out Florida State. That means Clemson will probably be the only team that can go from the ACC.
Okay. Will an SEC coach get fired during season this year?
No.
Well, I'll give you a layup. Does Auburn start with a win week 1?
If they don't, I would come in here.
We quit.
I would come in here. You know what? Let's not even say it.
Let's just say yes.
Yes, Auburn, yes, they will win by 27.
I love it. I love it. Plenty of exciting times ahead, y'all. I will be on the Ball State versus Kentucky call. A lot of excitement down there for Big Blue Nation as Devin Leary takes the reins as quarterback and offensive coordinator Liam Cohen returns to Lexington. So I will be on that noon on SEC Network. You know where to find Jay for the Auburn game. And like I said, Auburn kicks 2:30 Central Time on ESPN. So that's going to do it for us. Week 1. Here we go. We will be back next week to break down all the sure to be exciting action from the week 1 matchups and get you ready for quite the road test at Cal all the way out on the West Coast next week. So make sure you keep it locked. Subscribe if you haven't already so you'll get a notification when we release our episodes. You can follow us on social. Our handles are conveniently under our names right here. We are also on YouTube on Bleav's channel, so make sure you watch or listen or whatever you so choose. So thanks for listening, everybody. We will talk next week. War Eagle.
Where you go, everybody? Tell Taylor she can cut her AC back on.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do that because I'm literally perspiring. Goodbye.